Join me as I dive into the heart of New Orleans to see if I can uncover the truth behind the Axeman legend. In the early 20th century, a mysterious figure emerged in New Orleans, casting a shadow of terror over the vibrant city. This was the Axeman, a name that would become synonymous with brutality and fear. The Axeman's reign of terror was marked by a series of gruesome attacks on residents, which sent shockwaves of panic through the community. These were no ordinary assaults. The Axeman's modus operandi was to strike in the dead of night, using his axe to bludgeon his victims to death in their own homes. The people of New Orleans were gripped with fear, never knowing when or where the Axeman would strike next. As the body count rose, so did the sense of desperation. Residents were on high alert, locking their doors and windows in a futile attempt to keep the Axeman out. The authorities were equally baffled, unable to catch a glimpse of the killer or even identify a motive for the brutal killings. The Axeman's attacks seemed to be random, targeting families from all walks of life. There was no rhyme or reason to his killings, leaving the people of New Orleans feeling powerless and vulnerable. The city was on edge, with everyone living in fear of becoming the Axeman's next victim. In the midst of all this terror, the Axeman developed a curious habit. Before each attack, he would leave a trail of subtle clues, taunting the police and the public with his cunning. These clues only added to the sense of unease, making it seem as though the Axeman was always one step ahead of his pursuers. The Axeman's methods were meticulous, always attacking under the cover of darkness and leaving behind a signature calling card. His axe was his weapon of choice, which he wielded with deadly precision. The people of New Orleans were trapped in a living nightmare, with the Axeman pulling the strings from the shadows. As the Axeman's notoriety grew, so did his ego. He began to crave attention, leaving behind cryptic messages that only added to the public's fascination with the case. It was as though he was toying with the authorities, daring them to catch him. The police, meanwhile, were under immense pressure to bring the Axeman to justice, but every lead they pursued seemed to end in a dead end. One fateful night, the Axeman would write a letter that would change the course of his twisted game. In it, he promised to spare the lives of anyone who was playing jazz music in their home at the time of his next attack. The people of New Orleans were caught off guard by this bizarre request, but they didn't hesitate to take the Axeman up on his offer. On the night of the Axeman's next promised attack, the city came together in a mass display of jazz. Homes, bars, and clubs across New Orleans erupted into a cacophony of sound, with everyone determined to keep the Axeman at bay. It was a surreal sight, with the jazz notes hanging in the air like a protective shield. The Axeman's letter had inadvertently created a citywide party, bringing the people of New Orleans together in a shared moment of defiance. It was a beacon of hope in the midst of all the terror, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the city's spirit could not be broken. In the end, the Axeman's reign of terror would leave an indelible mark on New Orleans. His true identity would remain a mystery, but the impact of his crimes would be felt for generations to come. The Axeman may have disappeared into the shadows, but his legend would live on, a haunting reminder of the darkness that lurked in every city's underbelly.